Wheelchair-bound daughter dances with stranger up hearing music in the square, and her widowed father freezes. Thomas Wilson felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he pushed his daughter's wheelchair through the central square of Columbus. 2 years had passed since the accident that changed their lives forever, and every outing was a mix of hope and pain he carried in silence. That's when the first notes of "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" began to play from a guitarist seated near the fountain. Emily, his 8-year-old daughter, immediately lifted her head, her eyes lighting up in a way Thomas hadn't seen in months. "Daddy, it's Mommy's song," the little girl exclaimed, starting to sway her arms to the melody. Thomas felt a pang in his chest. That song always made Emily think of Jennifer, his wife, who had passed 3 years ago. It was the song they used to dance to together in the kitchen before everything changed. Before he realized it, a young woman in a yellow blouse quietly approached. She watched Emily with a gentle smile, as if recognizing something special in the girl. "May I dance with you?" the stranger asked, holding out her hands to Emily. Before Thomas could react, the woman had already taken the girl's small hands and began moving to the music. What happened next made Thomas's heart stop. The woman moved Emily's hands exactly the way Jennifer used to, the same gentle gestures, the same rhythm, even the slight tilt of her head at just the right moment in the song. It was impossible, yet it was happening right before his eyes. "How does she know?" Thomas whispered to himself, his legs trembling. Emily laughed in a way he hadn't heard in months, pure, genuine, full of joy. Other passers-by began stopping to watch the touching scene, a girl in a wheelchair dancing with a stranger, both completely lost in the moment. "You dance beautifully," the woman told Emily, never stopping their movements. "Your mommy taught you, didn't she?" Emily's eyes filled with happy tears. "How do you know about Mommy?" The woman just smiled, whispering something in the girl's ear that made her grin even wider. Thomas tried to step in, but something deep inside held him back. It had been so long since he'd seen his daughter this happy. "Mr. Wilson," Thomas turned to see Dr. Roberts, Emily's physical therapist, who had also paused to watch. "Don't interrupt," she said softly. "Look at her. See how relaxed she is, how her muscles are responding. This interaction could be very beneficial." When the song ended, the woman gently kissed Emily's forehead and began to slip away into the crowd. "Wait!" Thomas called out, finally snapping into action. "Who are you?" But she had already vanished, leaving only the faint scent of jasmine in the air. That night, Emily couldn't stop talking about the woman in the square. For the first time in months, she fell asleep smiling, without needing the anxiety medication she'd relied on since the accident. "Daddy, do you believe in angels?" she asked before drifting off. Thomas didn't know how to answer. He, a practical man, was beginning to question everything he thought he knew. The next day, during therapy at Mercy General Hospital, something extraordinary happened. The same woman appeared in the children's ward, wearing a volunteer's coat. "You!" Thomas exclaimed upon seeing her. "Hello, Mr. Wilson," she said calmly. "My name is Sarah Parker. I volunteer here." "What do you mean, volunteer? Dr. Roberts said she's never seen you before." "I started yesterday," Sarah replied, avoiding Thomas's gaze. "I came specifically to work with children like Emily." During the physical therapy session, Sarah demonstrated different techniques that made Emily show small movements in her feet. These were exercises even Dr. Roberts wasn't familiar with. "Where did you learn that?" asked the therapist, clearly intrigued. "I studied abroad," was Sarah's vague reply. Thomas watched everything with growing suspicion. There was something the woman wasn't telling, and he intended to find out what it was. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the days that followed, Thomas began investigating discreetly. He discovered Sarah had only signed up as a volunteer the week before, right after the incident in the square. But what puzzled him most was when the cemetery caretaker told him she visited Jennifer's grave every week for over a year. "Every Monday, sharp at 10 in the morning," confirmed old George, the caretaker. "She always brings fresh flowers and stays there whispering. I thought she was family." Thomas felt his world collapse. How did a stranger know where his wife was buried? How did she know Emily's preferences? How did she recognize that specific way of dancing? Determined to confront Sarah, he waited for her outside the hospital the next afternoon. "We need to talk," he said, blocking her path. "Mr. Wilson, Who are you, really? How did you know my wife? How do you know where she's buried?" Sarah lowered her head, clearly wrestling with some inner emotion. "Jennifer and I were childhood friends," she finally whispered. "Best friends for many years." "That's a lie. Jennifer never mentioned any Sarah." "Because we fought," she said, tears in her eyes. "We had a terrible fight and never spoke again. It was just a few months before she met you." Thomas felt a tightness in his chest. Jennifer did have a childhood friend who had moved away and lost contact. She spoke of her sometimes, always with sadness, but never mentioned the name. "What did you fight about?" Sarah hesitated for a long moment. "Over a man," she admitted. We both fell for the same person. The fight was awful. I said horrible things to her and she to me. I moved to Chicago the next day and never went back, until now." "Why come back?" "Because when I found out when I heard what happened, I realized I'd lost my chance to apologize forever. And when I learned about Emily's accident, I decided I could at least try to help my best friend's daughter." Thomas fell silent, processing the information. So many questions swirled in his mind, but the biggest was, should he trust this woman who was clearly hiding something more? "How did you find out about Emily's accident?" I followed your lives on social media. I know it sounds strange, but I could never completely cut ties with Jennifer. When I saw the news about the accident, I decided to come back." That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. His mind wavered between suspicion and hope. Sarah was genuinely helping Emily in ways no other professional had managed. The girl was more engaged, more cooperative in therapy, but something in the story still didn't quite fit. The next day, he decided to talk to his mother-in-law, Mrs. Williams, Jennifer's mother. If anyone knew her daughter's story, it was her. "Sarah?" repeated the 67-year-old woman, her gaze distant. "My, it's been so long since I heard that name." "So you know her?" "Of course I do. She was practically like a second daughter to me. She and Jennifer were inseparable. They slept here, studied together, shared everything." "What about the fight?" Mrs. Williams's face darkened. "It was terrible. I've never seen two people who loved each other so much hurt each other like that. Jennifer was depressed for months after Sarah moved away." "What exactly did they fight about?" Mrs. Williams let out a deep sigh. "Because of Scott. He was a guy they met in college. Handsome, charming, but a real heartbreaker. Both of them fell for him, and he kept stringing them along." "And what happened?" "One day, Jennifer found out he'd been secretly seeing Sarah right after declaring his love to her. The fight was ugly. Sarah said Jennifer always had everything, that she was the prettiest, the smartest, and that for once she deserved to be with the man she wanted. Jennifer fired back that Sarah had always been jealous and was now showing her true colors." Wow. Harsh words were said on both sides. Sarah moved to Chicago the next day. Jennifer cried for weeks, but you know what? Years later, she confessed to me that she missed her friend terribly and wished she could apologize. Thomas was shocked by the revelation. Jennifer had truly missed her friend all these years. "Do you think I should trust Sarah?" "Son, the Sarah I knew was a sweet, generous girl who loved Jennifer like a sister. If she came back to help Emily, it must be because guilt was eating her up inside. And from what you've told me, she's really helping the girl." When Thomas arrived at the hospital the next afternoon, he was stunned by what he saw. Emily was standing, supported between Sarah and Dr. Roberts, taking small steps with the help of a walker. "Daddy!" the girl shouted when she saw him. "Look, I stood up." Thomas rushed to them, tears streaming down his face. "How is this possible?" "Sarah brought a new method," Dr. Roberts explained. "She studied experimental therapies combining music, dance, and specific exercises. The results are remarkable." That evening, Thomas invited Sarah to dinner at his house. It was time to clear the air and maybe build a new relationship based on honesty. "Thank you," he said as they sat at the table, "for everything you're doing for Emily. You don't have to thank me. I'm doing this for her. And for Jennifer. Sarah, I know there's more you haven't told me. She sighed and set down her fork. It's true, there's something I didn't say. Thomas waited silently. Before Jennifer passed, she wrote me a letter, one asking for forgiveness and saying that if anything happened to her, she wanted me to take care of Emily. But I only got that letter after she'd already gone. What do you mean? She left it with a mutual friend, asking them to deliver it, only if something happened to her. When I got it, I realized she'd forgiven me long ago and that I'd wasted years holding on to bitterness. Thomas felt a lump in his throat. Do you have that letter? Sarah opened her purse and pulled out a yellowed envelope. I want you to read it. There's a part about you and Emily. With trembling hands, Thomas unfolded the letter and began reading his wife's familiar handwriting. Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me. I hope wherever I am, we can finally forgive each other for the harsh words we exchanged years ago. You were always my best friend, my sister at heart. I know our fight was over something silly, just two insecure girls fighting over a man who wasn't worth a single tear. I have a beautiful family now. Thomas is the kindest man in the world, and our daughter Emily is the light of my life. But I've always felt a void without you. I always wanted to share this joy with you. If anything happens to me, please take care of my girl. You've always been good with children. You always knew how to make them smile. Emily will need feminine affection, and I don't trust anyone more than you for that. Thomas is a good man, but sometimes he's overly protective. Don't let him stop you from getting close to our daughter. She'll need you even if she doesn't realize it yet. Do you remember how we used to dance at my mother's house? Teach that to Emily. Teach her to feel beautiful, to feel loved, to feel special. You've always known how to do that better than anyone. I love you, my friend. I always have. With all my affection, Jennifer P.S. There's a song I always sing to Emily to help her sleep. It's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. When she hears that song, she'll remember me. If one day you're with her and that song plays, dance with her. She'll understand. Thomas finished reading the letter with tears streaming down his face. Everything made sense now. The way Sarah danced with Emily, her knowledge of the girl's preferences, even the fact that she showed up just as Somewhere Over the Rainbow was playing. Jennifer knew, he whispered. She knew you'd come back. I think so. She always knew me better than I knew myself. At that moment, Emily appeared in the living room, limping slightly with the help of her walker. Daddy, why are you crying? Thomas and Sarah exchanged glances and smiled through their tears. We're crying from joy, sweetheart, Thomas said. Aunt Sarah is going to stay with us for a while. Forever? Emily asked hopefully. If she wants to, Thomas replied, looking at Sarah. Forever, she confirmed, hugging the girl. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. But life is rarely as simple as we'd like. The following week, Mrs. Williams showed up at Thomas's house with a scowl and a posture he knew well. His mother-in-law was ready for battle. Thomas, we need to talk about this Sarah woman, she said as soon as she walked in. Mrs. Williams, I thought you liked the idea of her helping Emily. I like the idea. I don't like the ulterior motives. What ulterior motives? Oh, Thomas, can't you see? A single beautiful woman shows up out of nowhere to care for the daughter of a widower. You think that's a coincidence? Thomas felt his irritation rise. Mrs. Williams. Sarah was Jennifer's best friend. She's here because she wants to take my daughter's place, the older woman snapped, and you, being a man, can't see it. You're being unfair. Unfair. Thomas, this woman disappeared from Jennifer's life for over 10 years and now shows up exactly when you're vulnerable, when Emily needs a mother figure. Doesn't that seem suspicious to you? She brought a letter from Jennifer asking her to care for Emily. A letter no one else has seen except the two of you. How convenient, don't you think? Thomas fell silent. Mrs. Williams's words planted a seed of doubt in his mind. What if she was right? What if Sarah really did have ulterior motives? That afternoon, when Sarah arrived for Emily's physical therapy session, she immediately sensed a change in Thomas's attitude. Did something happen? She asked. Sarah, I need you to stop coming here for a while. What do you mean? I think it's getting complicated. Emily is becoming too attached to you, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. Sarah felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. Thomas, what's going on? Yesterday everything was fine. My mother-in-law made me see things differently. Maybe she's right to question your intentions. My intentions, Sarah repeated, disbelieving. My intentions are to help Emily walk again. Or maybe your intentions are to take the place you never had in Jennifer's life. The accusation cut deep. Sarah felt hot tears streaming down her face. How can you say that? After everything we've talked about, after Jennifer's letter, the letter that only you and I have seen, how can I be sure it's real? Sarah fell silent for a long moment, clearly hurt by the distrust. If that's what you think of me, then maybe it's better if I leave, she finally said. But before I go, I want you to know one thing. I would never, ever use Jennifer's memory or the love I have for Emily to get anything. If you can't see that, then you really don't know me. She turned and walked out of the hospital, leaving Thomas with a terrible feeling that he had made an unforgivable mistake. When he got home and told Emily that Sarah wouldn't be coming back, the girl's reaction was devastating. Why, Daddy, doesn't she like me anymore? It's not that, sweetheart, it's complicated. You sent her away, didn't you? Emily accused, with a sharpness that startled Thomas. You always do this when someone tries to help me. Emily, it's not like that. Yes, it is. You're afraid I'll get better and won't need you anymore. His daughter's words hit Thomas like a slap. Was that true? Was he really so selfish that he'd sabotage Emily's recovery just because he was afraid of losing her? In the days that followed, Emily fell into a deep depression. She stopped cooperating with therapy, refused to use her walker, and went back to spending all day in her wheelchair. Worse still, she stopped talking about her feelings and showed no joy at all. She's regressing, Dr. Roberts warned. The progress we made is slipping away fast. If this continues, it could permanently damage her willingness to recover. What can I do? Bring Sarah back. I know there was some issue between you, but she got results none of us could. And more importantly, she brought hope back to Emily. But finding Sarah wasn't as simple as Thomas expected. She had left the hospital's volunteer program, and no one knew where she was staying. The address on record was for a hotel, and she had already checked out. Desperate, Thomas began searching the entire city. He asked at hospitals, physical therapy clinics, community centers. Then, while walking through the outskirts of town, he heard music coming from an abandoned warehouse. Following the sound, he found Sarah teaching dance to a group of children with disabilities. She had set up an improvised social project, offering free help to those who couldn't afford treatment. Sarah, he called from the doorway. She turned, surprised, and Thomas could see her eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious she had been crying a lot these past few days. What are you doing here? She asked, not stopping the music. I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. You made it very clear what you think of me. I was wrong. Sarah stopped the music and dismissed the children. Wrong about what? Everything. About your intentions, about the letter, about you. What changed your mind? Thomas took a deep breath. Emily. She's regressing, losing all the hope you gave her. And I realized maybe I'm afraid of losing her in other ways. Afraid of her becoming too independent, afraid she won't need me anymore. Sarah studied him for a long moment. And your mother-in-law, does she still think I have ulterior motives? I'll deal with Mrs. Williams. What matters now is Emily. She needs you, Sarah, and I need you too. How so? I need my happy little girl back, and you're the only one who can do that. Sarah hesitated. Thomas, I can't take any more hurt. If you change your mind again, I won't, I promise. And how can I be sure of that? Thomas took out a copy of Emily's birth certificate from his pocket. I want you to be Emily's legal godmother. I want you to have the right to make decisions about her treatment. I want you to be officially part of her life. Sarah was shocked. Are you serious? Completely serious. Jennifer wanted you to take care of our daughter. It's time I honored that request. That same afternoon, they went home together. Emily's reaction when she saw Sarah was indescribable. She cried, laughed, and shouted with joy all at once. "You came back! I knew you'd come back!" "I'm sorry it took so long, sweetheart," Sarah said, hugging her tightly. "Daddy said you're going to be my real godmother. Is it true?" "It's true if you want." "I do, I really do." But Mrs. Williams didn't take the news well. When she found out about Thomas's plans, she showed up at his house the next day, clearly upset. "Thomas, what's this about legal guardianship? Have you lost your mind?" "Mrs. Williams, you need to understand." "Understand what?" "That you're giving legal rights over my granddaughter to a complete stranger." "She's not a stranger. She was Jennifer's best friend." "Was. Over 10 years ago." "People change, Thomas, and I won't let you put my granddaughter at risk." "At risk? Sarah is helping Emily like no one else could." "Today she is. And tomorrow? What if she decides to leave again? What if she decides she wants custody of Emily? Have you thought about that?" Thomas hadn't considered that possibility, and Mrs. Williams noticed his hesitation. "I'll take legal action if I have to," she threatened. "I won't let my granddaughter be used as a pawn." The threat of a lawsuit left Thomas desperate. He didn't want a family feud, but he also didn't want to disappoint Emily again. He talked to Sarah about Mrs. Williams' concerns. "Maybe she has a point," Sarah admitted. "Maybe it's too soon for me to have legal rights over Emily." "But you're not leaving again, are you?" "I don't plan to, but I understand her worry. If I were a grandmother, I'd probably do the same." It was Emily who found the solution to the standoff. During a physical therapy session, she asked why Grandma Williams didn't like Aunt Sarah. "She's scared, sweetheart," Thomas explained. "Scared you might get hurt again." "But Aunt Sarah is helping me get better. Why would she be scared of that?" "Sometimes adults are complicated, Emily. What if I talk to Grandma? If I tell her I want Aunt Sarah here?" Thomas and Sarah exchanged glances. Emily's innocence might be exactly what they needed. "Would you talk to her?" Sarah asked. "Of course, Grandma loves me. If I ask, she'll understand." The following Sunday, Mrs. Williams came over for lunch as usual. Emily, who was already taking small steps with her walker, went to meet her grandmother. "Grandma, I need to talk to you." "Of course, sweetheart, what is it?" "You don't like Aunt Sarah, do you?" Mrs. Williams hesitated. "It's not that I don't like her, Emily. I'm just worried about you." "But Grandma, she's helping me walk. Look." Emily started moving around the room with her walker, showing off her progress. "Before she came, I was so sad. I didn't want to do therapy. I didn't want to try walking. But she taught me I can do things I never thought I could. Emily, and you know what? When she dances with me, I feel like Mom is here too. It's like Mom sent her to take care of me." Her granddaughter's words touched Mrs. Williams deeply. She looked over at Sarah, who was watching from a distance, clearly moved. "Grandma, can you give Aunt Sarah a chance? Please, for me?" Mrs. Williams took a deep breath and reached out her hand to Sarah. "Sit here with me, child. Let's talk." Sarah hesitated but moved closer and sat beside the older woman. "I was too harsh with you," Mrs. Williams admitted. "But you have to understand that Emily is all I have left of my daughter. I'm terrified of someone hurting her again." "I understand completely," Sarah replied. "If I were a grandmother, I'd probably act the same way." "You really don't have ulterior motives. You're not interested in Thomas?" Sarah smiled sadly. "Mrs. Williams, I've only loved one man in my life, and I lost him because of foolish pride. I'm not looking to replace anyone. I'm just trying to honor my best friend's last wish. And what if one day you want to leave? Then I'll talk to you first. I'll make sure Emily is ready and has all the support she needs. But honestly, I don't plan on going anywhere. This town is my home now." Mrs. Williams studied Sarah's face for a long moment. "All right, I'll give you a chance, but on one condition." "What?" "I want to be involved in Emily's treatment. I want to understand what you're doing. I want to learn. If we're going to work together to help my granddaughter, then let's truly work together." "I'd love your help," Sarah said sincerely. Just then, Emily approached with her walker and hugged both women. "Now we're talking. Now I have two grandmas looking after me." Thomas, watching from the kitchen, felt a peace he hadn't known in years. Finally, his family was whole again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers grow. Now back to the story. With Sarah and Mrs. Williams reconciled, Emily's progress accelerated dramatically. The two women joined forces. Mrs. Williams provided financial resources for specialized equipment, while Sarah contributed her rehabilitation expertise. Together, they created an intensive program combining traditional physical therapy, therapeutic dance, and music-based exercises. The project caught the attention of the local medical community, though skeptically at first. "Therapeutic dance?" questioned Dr. Thompson, the neurosurgeon who had operated on Emily. "There's no solid scientific basis for that." "With all due respect, doctor," Sarah replied during a hospital meeting, "the results speak for themselves. Emily has regained 40% of the sensation in her legs and is taking steadier steps every day. That could just be coincidence or the body's natural recovery. Then why didn't she show any progress in the first 2 years?" Dr. Thompson had no answer, but his skepticism was shared by other professionals. Some saw Sarah's methods as disguised quackery. The medical community's resistance had real consequences. Emily's insurance began questioning the costs of the alternative treatment, and some equipment Sarah requested was denied. "It's only a matter of time before they cancel coverage altogether," warned Dr. Roberts. "If we can't prove the scientific validity of this method, we'll be in trouble." That's when Mrs. Williams had an idea that changed everything. "What if we opened our own rehabilitation center?" she suggested at dinner. "What do you mean?" Thomas asked. "I own a property downtown that's currently leased to a business. The contract expires next month. We could turn it into a center specializing in therapeutic dance." "Mrs. Williams, that would be very expensive," Sarah pointed out. "I've had money set aside since my husband passed. I've always wanted to do something meaningful with it. And what better use than helping children like Emily?" The idea excited everyone, especially Emily. "Are we going to have our own clinic?" she asked eagerly. "Not exactly a clinic," Sarah explained. "More like a community center, a place where children with mobility challenges can come to learn that there are no limits to their dreams." But turning the idea into reality wasn't simple. First, they had to deal with bureaucracy to obtain licenses and permits. The process took months, during which Emily continued her makeshift treatment in Thomas's garage. Then came the issue of equipment. Mrs. Williams was willing to invest, but Sarah insisted everything be done with financial responsibility. "I don't want you spending all your savings," she insisted. "Let's start small and grow gradually." Sarah's attitude impressed Mrs. Williams, who finally understood the young woman had no financial interest in the project. While waiting for the permits, other parents of children with disabilities began seeking Sarah out. News of Emily's progress had spread through town, and desperate families were looking for hope. "Please," begged Amanda, mother of a 6-year-old boy with cerebral palsy. "My son hasn't walked since birth. The doctors say he never will. But if Emily is making progress..." "Every case is different," Sarah explained carefully. "I can't promise results. I know, but can I at least try?" Sarah looked at Thomas and Mrs. Williams, who nodded in support. "All right, but I'll see you at my house until the center is ready." That's how Sarah's garage turned into a makeshift mini-clinic. She had rented a simple house in the neighborhood where she grew up, near Mrs. Williams's home. Every day, children with different disabilities came for therapeutic dance sessions. Results varied. Some showed impressive progress, others just improved their mood and self-esteem. But every child left with more hope than when they arrived. "What you're doing is wonderful," Thomas said one afternoon, watching Sarah work with a group of 5 children. "But it's not sustainable long-term. You're burning yourself out." It was true. Sarah worked morning to night, 7 days a week, charging nothing. She was living off the savings she'd brought from Chicago, and they wouldn't last forever. "I know," she admitted. "But how can I charge families who already spend everything on conventional treatments? You need to find balance, otherwise you won't be able to help anyone long-term." Mrs. Williams was the one who brought the solution. "What if we create a mixed system?" she suggested. Families who can pay do. Those who can't get free care. And I'll cover the difference. Mrs. Williams, that's not fair to you. Sarah, my dear, I've lived 67 years on this earth. I worked hard, saved money, raised my family. Now I want to leave a legacy that means something. What better legacy than giving hope to families who've lost everything? Mrs. Williams's generosity deeply moved everyone involved. But she had one condition. She wanted to actively participate in the project. I want to learn how to help, she said. I don't just want to be the one paying the bills. I want to understand what you do. I want to help in the sessions. But you've never worked with special needs children, Sarah pointed out. Then teach me. I have time, energy, and plenty of love to give. Sarah was moved by the request. Seeing a woman Mrs. Williams's age, willing to learn something entirely new, was inspiring. The first sessions with Mrs. Williams were challenging. She was impatient, wanted immediate results, and sometimes spoke too loudly to the children. But gradually, under Sarah's guidance, she learned to be gentle and patient. Grandma Williams has become our official assistant, Emily joked one day. Not an assistant, Mrs. Williams corrected proudly. I'm a therapist in training. The project began gaining recognition in the city. The local newspaper ran a story about their work, and a regional TV station sent a crew to film a documentary. But not all attention was positive. Some local healthcare professionals started publicly criticizing the method, calling it disguised quackery. These people are giving false hope to vulnerable families, Dr. Thompson declared in an interview. There's no scientific basis for these alternative therapies. The criticism hurt Sarah deeply, but it also motivated her to seek scientific validation for her work. I'll document everything, she decided. Every step forward, every setback, every method used. If they want scientific data, I'll give them scientific data. Thomas, who had been inspired by Sarah's dedication and decided to study physical therapy, helped her create a rigorous documentation system. They filmed sessions, measured progress with precise equipment, and kept detailed records of everything. 6 months into their systematic work, the results were remarkable. Of the 15 children regularly attending sessions, 12 had shown measurable progress. 5 of them, including Emily, had regained movement abilities doctors had deemed impossible. This data is surprising, Dr. Thompson admitted when Sarah presented the results at a medical meeting, but it could still be explained by external factors. Then how about a controlled study? Sarah challenged. You choose the patients, apply strict scientific criteria, and test my method against traditional ones. The proposal took the doctors by surprise. None had expected Sarah to have enough confidence to submit her work to formal scientific testing. It would take at least a year, Dr. Thompson said. I accept. And you'd have to stop taking new patients during the study. I won't accept that, Sarah replied firmly. I won't deny treatment to children in need, but I can set aside a group of patients exclusively for the study. After much negotiation, they reached an agreement. 10 children would be selected for a comparative study, 5 would receive traditional treatment, 5 would receive therapeutic dance. Progress would be measured by an independent medical team, unaware of which treatment each child received. During the study period, the rehabilitation center finally opened. Mrs. Williams' property had been completely renovated, with state-of-the-art equipment, specialized rooms, and even a small theater for performances. It's more beautiful than I imagined, Emily said on opening day, walking through the main entrance unaided. You can walk on your own, Thomas exclaimed, moved. Almost, she corrected with a smile. I still get tired after a while, but I'm getting there. The center's opening drew hundreds of people. Families from across the region came to see the project, local politicians gave speeches, and even some skeptical doctors attended. But the most emotional moment was when Emily and 5 other children from the program performed a dance. Seeing children once considered hopeless cases moving with grace and joy brought many adults to tears. Thank you, a mother whispered to Sarah after the performance. Thank you for giving me back my daughter. That night, after everyone had left, Thomas, Sarah, Mrs. Williams, and Emily sat in the garden of the center. to reflect on what they had built together. "Jennifer would be proud," said Mrs. Williams, breaking the silence. "I think she knew this would happen," Sarah replied. "I think she knew we needed each other." "And now?" asked Thomas. "What comes next?" "Now we keep going," said Sarah. "One child at a time, one family at a time, until it's no longer necessary." "But what if the scientific study doesn't prove the method's effectiveness?" Mrs. Williams asked. "Then we'll improve the method," Sarah answered firmly. "We'll study more, research more, until we find even better ways to help these children." Emily, who had been quietly listening to the adults' conversation, finally spoke up. "Aunt Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Do you still feel sad about that fight with Mom?" Sarah took a moment before answering. "Sometimes I do, yes. Sad about the time we lost. But I'm also happy because that pain brought me to all of you. And now I have a new family." "A big family," Emily added, "with Dad, Grandma Williams, me, and all the kids who come here." At that moment, Thomas realized Emily had grown beyond just physical recovery. She had become more mature, more empathetic, more aware of the world around her. "You're right," he said, hugging his daughter. "We have a big and special family." 6 months after the center's opening, the results of the scientific study were finally ready. Dr. Thompson called a meeting to present the data. "I must admit," he began, visibly uneasy, "the results are conclusive." Sarah held her breath. "Children who received therapeutic dance showed superior progress in every metric evaluated: muscle strength, motor coordination, balance, and, surprisingly, even in psychological aspects like self-esteem and motivation." The room erupted in applause. Tears of relief streamed down Sarah's face. "Does this mean the method is officially recognized?" she asked. "It means we'll publish a scientific paper on the results," Dr. Thompson replied, "and we'll recommend therapeutic dance as a complementary treatment for childhood paralysis." It was a victory not just for Sarah, but for all the families who had believed in the project when it was just a dream. The following month, the center welcomed its first visit from doctors from other cities interested in learning the method. Sarah began teaching training courses, always with the help of Mrs. Williams, who had become an expert in working with families. "Who would have thought I'd become a teacher at 68?" she joked after a training session. "You've always been a teacher," Sarah replied. "You just didn't know it yet." Thomas, now in his second year of physical therapy school, started working part-time at the center. It was heartwarming to see father and daughter helping other families overcome the same challenges they had faced. Emily, now 10 years old and walking normally, became an unofficial ambassador for the center. She welcomed new children, shared her story, and showed them that any obstacle could be overcome with determination and support. "Remember when you first got here in a wheelchair?" she asked a 7-year-old boy who had just started treatment. "Yeah," he mumbled, clearly discouraged. "I was like that too. I thought I'd never run, jump, or dance again. But look!" Emily spun in a little twirl, making the boy smile for the first time since he arrived. "Do you think I'll be able to do that too?" "I'm sure, but you'll have to be patient and trust Aunt Sarah. She has magical powers." "What kind of powers?" "She makes us believe it's possible, even when everyone says it isn't." These conversations between Emily and the new children had become an unofficial part of the treatment. Sarah noticed that having someone their own age share their story of overcoming adversity was more effective than any adult's speech. That's how the Big Buddy program was born, where children who had already recovered became mentors for those just starting treatment. The program was so successful that child psychologists from several universities began studying it. The combination of hope, real-life examples, and peer connection proved to be a powerful motivational tool. 2 years after the center's opening, they received a special visit. The Secretary of Health was in town for a political event and asked to see the project that was revolutionizing pediatric paralysis treatment in the United States. "Impressive," the Secretary said after touring the facility. "You've proven that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective." "It wasn't simple," Sarah corrected. "It took a lot of love, dedication, and teamwork." I'd like to propose expanding this project to other cities. The federal government can offer financial and logistical support. The offer was tempting, but Sarah hesitated. Mr. Secretary, our work succeeds because it's personal. We know every child, every family. I'm not sure we could maintain that quality on a larger scale. Then how about we start slow? One city at a time, always under your supervision? After much discussion with Thomas and Mrs. Williams, they decided to accept the proposal, but with strict conditions. Each new center would open only when its team was fully trained, and Sarah would make monthly visits to ensure quality care. The first center outside Columbus opened in Pittsburgh 6 months later. Sarah spent a week there training the local team and overseeing the first treatments. It's strange seeing others do what I started here, she told Thomas during a phone call. Like a daughter leaving home? He teased. Exactly, I'm proud but also a little anxious. You'll get used to it, and think of the upside. Now dozens of kids are being helped, not just ours. When Sarah returned to Columbus, a surprise awaited her. Emily had organized a party to celebrate the project's expansion. Surprise! All the children shouted as she walked in. Emily, did you plan all this? With Grandma Williams and Dad's help, I wanted to show how proud we are of you. The party was moving. Every family the center had helped brought a small tribute, drawings, letters, thank you videos, handmade gifts. But the biggest surprise came at the end, when Thomas stood to give a speech. Sarah, he began, visibly nervous, 4 years ago, you came into our lives like an angel in disguise. You brought hope when we'd lost all faith. You brought love when we needed it most. And you gave us a family where there was only pain. Sarah's heart raced. There was something different in Thomas's voice. You've done more than Jennifer ever hoped. Our daughter didn't just walk again. She became strong, confident, and kind. And I've learned love takes many forms. Thomas knelt before Sarah, pulling a small box from his pocket. Sarah Parker, will you marry me? The entire center fell silent. Sarah looked at Thomas, then at Emily, who was grinning from ear to ear, then at Mrs. Williams, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Thomas, She hesitated. What about Jennifer? Jennifer taught me that loving someone means wanting them to be happy, even after you're gone. She brought you to me not just to care for Emily, but to care for all of us. She knew we'd need you. Say yes, Aunt Sarah, Emily shouted, unable to contain herself any longer. Yes, Sarah whispered through her tears. Yes, I want to marry you. The center erupted in applause and cheers of joy. Children, parents, staff, everyone celebrated as if it were a collective victory. Later, when the party ended and everyone had left, Thomas, Sarah, Emily, and Mrs. Williams sat in the center's garden, just as they had on the night of its opening. So now we're going to be a real family, Emily asked. We've always been a real family, Sarah replied. Now we're just making it official. And I'll have a dad who knows physical therapy and a mom who knows dance. I'll be the luckiest kid in the world. You already are the luckiest kid in the world, Thomas said, and the strongest. And the most special, Mrs. Williams added. My little granddaughter who taught us all about perseverance and love. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Are you still afraid Aunt Sarah will leave? Mrs. Williams smiled and looked at Sarah. No, my dear, now I know she's here to stay. And more importantly, I know that even if one day she had to go, the love she's given us would remain forever. 3 years later, in the same square where it all began, a special ceremony was taking place. The Rehabilitation Center in Columbus was celebrating its 5th anniversary, and the city had decided to honor the project by renaming the square Hope Square. Emily, now 13 and a radiant teenager, was chosen to unveil the commemorative plaque. Beside her stood Thomas, Sarah, now married for 2 years, Mrs. Williams, and representatives from the 50 families who had been directly helped by the center. When I was little, Emily said into the microphone, I thought my life was over when I stopped walking, but really it was just beginning in a different way. I learned that it's not our limitations that define who we are, but how we respond to them. In the audience, Thomas and Sarah exchanged proud glances. The girl who once couldn't stand was now inspiring hundreds with her wisdom. "This center isn't just here to teach kids how to walk," Emily continued. "It's here to teach whole families how to dream again, to show that love can overcome any obstacle, and that sometimes angels appear disguised as strangers in some random square." When her speech ended, the musician who had played in the square 5 years earlier took the stage and began playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Emily stepped down and reached for Sarah's hand. "Let's dance, Mom." It was the first time Emily had called her Mom in public. Sarah felt an indescribable emotion fill her heart. "Of course, my girl." The two danced in the middle of the square just as they had 5 years before. But now they weren't a stranger and a desperate little girl anymore. They were mother and daughter, bound by a love woven through pain, hope, and mutual devotion. Around them, other families joined the dance. Children who had arrived at the center in wheelchairs now ran and played freely. Parents who had lost all hope now smiled as they watched their children surpass every medical prognosis. Thomas, watching the scene, thought of the letter Jennifer had left for Sarah. She had been right in every way. Sarah had taken care of Emily, had brought joy back into her life, and had created a family where there was once only pain. But more than that, she had transformed her own pain into a source of healing for hundreds of other families. She had proven that the deepest wounds, when healed with love, can become the most powerful sources of strength. "What are you thinking about?" asked Mrs. Williams, stepping closer to him. "I'm thinking that Jennifer was always wiser than any of us imagined." "How so?" "She knew that Sarah didn't just come to take care of Emily. She came to teach us that true love has no limits, no borders, and never ends. It only transforms and multiplies." Mrs. Williams nodded, watching her granddaughter dance with the woman who had become so much more than a stepmother. "You know something, Thomas. I used to be afraid that sharing Emily's love with someone else would mean less love for me, but I've learned that love is the only thing in the world that grows when it's shared." "You're absolutely right, and I think all these families here have learned the same lesson." At that moment, a young couple approached them. The woman held a baby in her arms, and the man pushed a wheelchair where a boy of about 5 sat. "Excuse me," the woman said timidly. "Could you tell us where the rehabilitation center is? We traveled from Indianapolis to bring our son." Thomas and Mrs. Williams smiled. "You've come to the right place," Thomas said. "The center is 2 blocks from here. But before you go, watch this dance. See that girl in the middle?" The couple looked at Emily, who twirled gracefully to the music. 5 years ago, she was in a wheelchair just like your son. Today, she's teaching other children that there are no limits to dreams. "Is that true?" the man asked, incredulous. "It is," Mrs. Williams confirmed, "and you'll live that story too. You can be sure of it." The music ended, and Emily ran over to them. "Daddy, Grandma, did you see? I danced the whole song without stopping once." "We saw, sweetheart," Thomas said, hugging her. "We're so proud of you." Emily noticed the couple with the boy in the wheelchair. "Hi," she said, walking up to the boy. "What's your name?" "Nathan," he answered shyly. "Hi, Nathan. I'm Emily. Did you come to see our center? My mom said you can help me walk. They sure can. Want to know a secret?" Nathan nodded, curious. 5 years ago, I was in a wheelchair just like yours, and now look." Emily took a few dance steps, making Nathan smile. "And do you know the secret to walking again?" "What?" "Believing it's possible even when everyone says it's not, and having people who believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself." "Will you be one of those people?" Nathan asked. "Of course, I'll be your friend and cheer for you every day. You can count on me." Nathan's parents exchanged an emotional glance. This was exactly the atmosphere of hope and warmth they had come searching for. "Come on," Emily said, taking Nathan's mother's hand. "I'll introduce you to my mom. She's the most amazing person in the world and will take such good care of Nathan." As Emily led the new family to meet Sarah, Thomas and Mrs. Williams watched the scene. "Another family beginning their journey of hope," Mrs. Williams remarked. "And more proof that love truly has no limits," Thomas added. At that moment, he fully understood the meaning of the letter Jennifer had left for Sarah. His wife hadn't just asked her friend to take care of Emily. He had created a chain of love that would endure for generations, touching the lives of hundreds, perhaps thousands of families. The center that began as a dream to help one little girl walk again had become a symbol that no obstacle is insurmountable when there is love, dedication, and people willing to believe in the impossible. As the sun set over Hope Square, Thomas looked at his extended family. Sarah chatting animatedly with Nathan's parents, Emily playing with the boy in the wheelchair, Mrs. Williams organizing treatment schedules, and dozens of other families who had found not just healing, but a new community of support and love. "Thank you, Jennifer," he whispered to the sky. "Thank you for teaching us that true love never dies. It just transforms into something even more beautiful." And there, in that square that had witnessed the first meeting between Sarah and Emily, a new story of hope was beginning. Nathan would be just one of hundreds of children who would discover that miracles happen when love meets determination, and that sometimes angels really do appear disguised as strangers in an ordinary square. The end. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of resilience and love? Do you believe Sarah made the right choices by dedicating her life to honoring her friend's memory? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you know any similar stories of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.